You're 11 minutes into a shower, and you are absolutely destroying someone. Your coworker, your sister, a guy from 2019 who said one thing at a barbecue. You've got the perfect line. You deliver it out loud, to the shampoo, with the tone and everything. And whoever it is has no comeback, because of course they don't. You're writing both sides. Then the water goes coldish, and you snap out of it and think, what am I doing? Why am I like this? Here's what I want you to know before we go any further. This is one of the most misread things your brain does. It looks like you're stewing. It looks unhealthy. It usually isn't. And the reason it happens in the shower specifically, not the car, not the couch, the shower, has a real answer, and it's going to change how you feel about that 11 minutes. Let's start with the thing everybody gets wrong. People assume the shower is where you go to be angry. It isn't. The shower is just the only place left where nothing is asking anything of you. Think about how rare that actually is now. No screen, no notifications, nobody can see your face. You're warm, you're safe, and the task in front of you takes almost no thought. You could soap up in a coma. And when there's no external demand on your attention, your brain doesn't sit there idling politely. It switches networks. There's a whole system in there, researchers call it the default mode network, that comes online exactly when you stop directing your focus outward. It's the machinery behind daydreaming, imagining the future, replaying your own social life. It's not the off switch, it's the other engine. And the shower is one of the few places in modern life where you actually let it run. So that's the where. Now the far more interesting question, why arguments? Why doesn't your brain use that free time to imagine a nice holiday? Sometimes it does, sure, but arguments win. They win constantly. And the reason is that your brain has a very specific bias about what it drags out of storage. It goes for the thing that isn't finished. Anything closed, resolved, handled, it drops. Anything left hanging keeps a little hook in it. There's a classic finding about this from a psychologist named Zygarnik, who noticed waiters could recall complicated unpaid orders in perfect detail, and then, the second the bill was settled, the whole thing evaporated from their heads. Unfinished stays loaded. Finished gets dumped. And a conversation where you felt disrespected and said nothing? That is the definition of unfinished. There's a French phrase for the specific misery of this, l'esprit de l'escalier, staircase wit. The brilliant response that shows up on your way out, down the stairs, 90 seconds after it could have done anything. The line came to you. It just came late, in the hallway, once the room had already emptied out. And your brain's been lugging it around since, like a tab nobody closed. The shower is just the first quiet moment where it can finally put the tab on the table. Here's where I part ways with how this usually gets discussed. Everyone files it under rumination and tells you to knock it off. I think that's wrong, and not in a nitpicky way. It changes what you should do about it. Rumination is circling. Same lap, same feeling, no new information, and you come out worse than you went in. What your brain is doing in the shower is usually something else. It's rehearsal. It's simulation. You're not stuck on a single replay. You're building other versions of it and taking each one for a test drive. What if I'd said this? What would they have come back with? How would that have landed? That's your brain running a scenario forward to prepare you, which is one of the smartest things it knows how to do. It's the same equipment you'd use to prep for a job interview, except nobody scheduled this one. You can tell the two apart, by the way, and it's worth knowing which you're doing. Rehearsal has a target. There's a version of you in the simulation who is going to say something, and part of you is genuinely working out whether to actually say it. Rumination doesn't have a target. It's just the wound, on loop, with the volume up. Rehearsal often ends with a decision, even a small one like, okay, I'm going to bring this up on Monday. Rumination ends when the water gets cold. Same behavior on the outside, completely different thing going on underneath. And there's a piece under both of them that almost nobody names, which I think is the real heart of this. Most of these imaginary arguments are not really about winning. Watch what you actually say next time. You're rarely inventing a devastating insult, you're explaining yourself. You're laying out why you did what you did, why you're not the person they seemed to think you were in that moment. That's not aggression, that's a status repair job. Something happened that made you feel small, or misunderstood, or unfairly cast, and your brain wants to correct the record. It's such a deep drive that it'll run the courtroom scene without an audience, without a verdict, without anyone ever knowing. You're defending your character to a shower wall because the part of you that got bruised doesn't care that nobody's listening. It just needs the case made. Which brings me to the one part of this I do think is worth watching. This whole system is useful, and it's also easy to get stuck in, and the tell is repetition without change. Running a hard conversation 2 or 3 times, trying different approaches, getting sharper each pass. That's your brain doing its job. Running the identical script for the 15th night in a row, word for word, with the same flare of heat in your chest and no new angle at all. That's not preparation. That's a groove worn so deep you're just falling into it. And the giveaway question is embarrassingly simple. Is anything in this version different from last time? If yes, you're working. If no, you're spinning, and spinning has a cost. Your body doesn't fully know the fight isn't happening. The stress response doesn't check whether the argument is real. You can walk out of a shower with your jaw tight and your heart going from a conversation that exists only in your head. So, practically, and I'm not going to tell you to stop thinking about it, because that's never worked for a single human being, including me. 2 things, and they're both small. First, let the rehearsal finish. Most of these loops keep restarting because they never reach an end point, so give it one. Either you're going to say something to this person, or you've decided you're not, and both count. The loop stays open until a decision closes it. That's the whole Zygarnik thing running in your favor for once. Second, and this is the one that surprises people, write the line down. Actually write it. The moment that perfect comeback exists somewhere outside your skull, your brain stops treating it as something it has to hold. It's the same logic as texting yourself a reminder so you can stop repeating it in your head. Half the reason it keeps coming back is that you're the only server it's stored on. And can I put in a word for the thing itself? We treat the shower argument like a symptom. I'd call it one of the more impressive things you do all day. You're running social simulations, testing dialogue, modeling another person's mind well enough to predict their comeback, rehearsing a version of yourself who holds their ground. Nobody taught you that. You do it for free, standing in the wet, talking to nobody. The people who never do this aren't calmer. A lot of them just aren't paying attention. So, next time you clock yourself mid-speech with a bottle of conditioner in your hand, no need to feel stupid about it. Just ask whether this version is any different from the last one. If it has, let it run. If it hasn't, that's your signal. That conversation wants to happen in the real world, or it wants to be put down. Either way, the tab gets paid, and your brain can finally clear the table. All right, tell me the truth in the comments. Who's the person you argue with in there? Not their name, just who. The boss, the ex, a relative. Someone from years ago who has absolutely no idea. There's a pattern in these answers, and I want to see if you're in it. And if you want the one that pairs with this, why your brain drags up your most cringeworthy memory at 2 a.m. completely unprompted when you were having a perfectly fine evening. That's the same machinery pointed somewhere much more personal. That one's next. See you there.